It's Stephen Pinecker from Mormon Book Reviews.
No, you're not. Actually, this is Stephen Pinecker of Mormon Book Reviews. Welcome to Gospel Tangents, your best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. Good job.
I'm Rick Bennett. I'm excited to have Matthew Gill back on the show. We're going to learn more about his growing up in the LDS Church, his visions, and his translating a record of the people on the British Isles. You won't want to miss this episode. Check it out.
And what led you to leave the LDS Church?
It was my first vision as an adult that happened in October of 2005. I was still in the church at that point. I'm quite happy to stay in the church. I held callings. I think I was at that time on the Melchizedek priesthood presidency at the time. So I was happy. I mean, I had friends there and good relationships with people, and my family. I mean, I'm a third generation LDS, so or I was. So it was just like my parents. All I knew was LDS Church. All I knew was the LDS story. I didn't really know anything else than the LDS story. I certainly wasn't aware of all the different organizations within the Restoration family. The only one I was really aware of was the RLDS, and we didn't really talk about them very much. So, and then I had this, I went to bed that night and I prayed, and my prayer was more, just direct me. What does my family need to do? You've been telling me since I was 12, this thing's going to come. Is it ever going to come? What's it all about? And then that night I have a vision and I see an angel, and the angel says to me, you're going to be given this gift. This gift is going to come to you. You need to prepare. And my first questions were at the time, what do you mean by prepare? What do I need to do? And the angel told me what some scriptures to read, where to read the scriptures from.
These were LDS scriptures or Bible scriptures, and what was the name of the angel? Sorry.
The angel was called the angel Raphael.
Okay.
He directed me. At the time, I only had LDS scriptures. I didn't have anything else to hand. But he was talking to me about scriptures that I didn't have. Like I'd never really studied the inspired version of the Bible, but he was talking about the real Bible. This is the one you need to read. And I'm like, where do I get a copy of this? And how do I go about? So he gave me a list of things to do. I went away and researched and did them and read them. I was told to read, in particular, to go through 2nd Nephi properly. Did that. And then, of course, when you start to do what you're being told to do by an angelic messenger, certain things start to happen in your life, don't they? Because then all of a sudden you're doing things that are contrary to what you're being told at church, which is exactly what happened. Exactly what happened. I remember one, and while these were going on, I was still a member. I hadn't left yet. This is 2005. So I was going to church with my wife and my son, who's about 2, and my parents. And I was just sat in a sacrament meeting. I can't tell you when the date was, but I remember it I remember the actual the instant. I was sitting in a sacrament meeting and they were blessing the sacrament. And I read the Doctrine and Covenants section on the preparing of the sacrament, who is to give the sacrament, who is to... And I was reading this. And for me, anyway, I looked at what we were doing. I looked at what the scripture said. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. We're not doing what the scriptures, even our own scriptures, are telling us. And I just felt this overwhelming feeling to get out of that room and get out of there. So I did. I got up and left and went into the corridor. And my dad came out. What's the matter? Vicky's upset. Vicky's worried. What's going on? I asked my wife. I said, I can't stay. I've got to get out. I can't stay here anymore. And I never went back. And I decided that night to write my resignation letter. And I gave it to my bishop the day after, which was on the Monday. I told him that they came, and I said to the bishop, you need to come he's come. I'm going to resign my membership. And they were like, no, don't do that. Don't resign your membership. We'll talk about it. Or anything.
Well, what were they doing wrong with the sacrament?
Well, they weren't. The right appropriate body wasn't passing or blessing it.
The priests weren't blessing it?
No, the priests were blessing it, but the priests weren't passing it. If you read the Doctrine and Covenants, it quite clearly states who should be passing the sacrament or administering the sacrament.
Oh, so you thought that the priest should pass it, not the deacons. Okay.
That's what we do. And it was just a light bulb moment for me, and I just had to get out there. And then I got home and prayed about it and thought about it, and I said, I can't do both. I cannot be having who I believe was a messenger from God telling me to do one thing, and then going to a place on a Sunday or a Wednesday or to a meeting and them telling me to do something completely opposite. Forget about it. Because I did tell people that I was having these experiences, but they were like, no, don't, just forget about them. They're not right. And I couldn't live two lives like that. I had to make a decision I chose for me anyway. And I believe it to be true, the right decision. So I told the bishopric, I'm leaving. I'm giving you a resignation letter. They came over, don't leave. We'll talk about it. I gave them a letter, and then they said, don't worry, we'll be back and we'll answer these questions. They never came back, and they never answered any of my questions. And that was the last time I saw or was involved with the LDS Church. And then my parents, a couple of months later, resigned their membership as well.
Okay, so this is October 2005.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Roughly.
Towards the back end. I mean, I had the first visitation in October of 2005. And it's quite funny because most of the angelic visitations, or the first ones, took place in October. In 1990, my first one took place in October. And then my second one, which is when I was an adult, took place in October.
And so the bishop tried to keep you in. I didn't mean to interrupt that.
Yeah. It was like, don't worry, we'll answer all your queries. We'll sit down and we'll talk about them. And they never came back. And my dad had questions that were different to mine. My dad said, can you answer these questions for me? I've been led to look at this. And they said, well, we'll get back to you. We'll get someone who knows about this. And they never got back to us.
So your dad was having visions as well?
Yeah, he was having his own experiences.
They were the same or different visions?
No, they were roughly the same. I mean, tailored for him, obviously. They weren't carbon copies of mine. And he was being told other things to look at and to ask questions about. And if they can't answer these questions, then, why can't they answer these questions? What are they trying to hide? But I've spoke to my father about them, but that's his story to tell, I suppose. And I don't really want to tell his story and get it wrong. So we all talked about what we were. I was the first to leave, and then I want to say like the December time, the late November time, they decided to leave. My parents.
Your parents left. So you left in October, and they left in November.
Yeah, I want to say like late November, early December, but it was before the end of the year. And then we didn't do anything. We didn't like go out the next day and start a branch or set up a congregation. It wasn't like that. I was just still learning and finding things out and listening to this messenger. And he was showing me things and leading me down pathways that I'd never been down before. And then, of course, it all culminated, as I've said, with the call to Stonehenge. Get you in the August of 2006. Get yourself to Stonehenge, and that's when I for the first time, that's when I thought, this is going to kick into third gear, and it kicked into fifth gear by the time that the box came, and I knew as soon as the box came that it would change everything. and the people who were still talking to me would no longer talk to me. And that's pretty much what happened, really.
Okay, so you got the plates. Was it September 26th, if I remember right?
Got the plates in the September the 23rd. Got
Okay.
the plate,
Okay.
and then we started working on them October 1st.
So you just decided to translate them, or there was no messenger telling you to translate them, or?
No, when we got them, obviously we didn't know it was going to be in the box. When we opened the box, it was a complete surprise to us. I was expecting one set of records, maybe. I had no idea what they might be on, whether they might be on paper or whatever. I had no idea there would be two in there.
So there were 24 brass plates and 10 brass plates, and then a Urim and Thummim. Is that what it was, or?
Yeah. I suppose you could call it Urim and Thummim. I just call them translators.
Okay.
So the 24 plates was roughly this size, I want to say.
Okay.
And the 10 other plates were slightly larger, but instead of portrait.
Okay.
The writing was across, but they were wider. Anyway, and then of course we had the translators, but I didn't know what to do. So the first thing I did was like, okay, shut the box, put the box away. We're not going to get everything out and start playing. Put it away. Let's go and pray about this. Let's go and ask the Lord, what do we do now? Obviously, you want us to translate. How does that work? I got the instruction to use the translators, and the best way to describe them, people, have you ever seen an old pair of medieval glasses? They were round, with like an arch in the middle, and they were wrapped in leather. One lens was red and the other lens was blue. They were inscribed around the outside, and they were big. They were. We're not wearing glasses, but they were super big, and we had trouble trying to keep them on. So my dad tied them around my head in the end, and then as soon as I knew,
So before he tied them on, you just had to hold them with your hands, or?
I had to sit there like this. And when you're trying to do something, and this is good because you can't move anything. So my dad came up with a great solution. Let's just tie the things. Let's just tie them on. So we tied them on, and then on October the 1st, we all decided after prayerful consideration that we would start to translate them. We were told to translate the smaller of the set, which was the 24 plate one to start with. And that's what we did.
That was smaller than the 10 plates?
Oh yeah. The templates were wider. The templates were wider. So if you can imagine the wooden box is square, the template sat on the bottom of the box, right? The 24 plates were on top of it, and then the interpreters or the translators were at the bottom.
Okay. So these were not the same gold plates that Moroni gave to Joseph Smith?
No. I've seen those. I saw them in a vision when I was 12.
Okay.
But they weren't the same plates as Joseph Smith. I wouldn't expect them to be either because they're not here. So, and I knew that they wouldn't be because I'd been told this was a record of the former inhabitants of the British Isles. So what would I need the gold plates for? Because that's your area. So no, I knew that would be Joseph Smith's gold plates, and there was no need for there to be got Joseph Smith's gold plates. These were brand new records that no one's ever seen before. And so we just translated them. It took about 10 Sundays to get the work done.
So you only translated on Sunday?
I only translated. That was what we were told to do. So when we received the plates and the praying, my dad said to me, we better start like having church meetings. And I was like, I don't know. I've not been asked to start a branch. I've not been asked to start an organisation. I don't know if I should be even thinking about this. And my dad said to me, well, surely it's a natural progression, right? I said, I don't know.
So how did you decide to translate him instead of your dad?
Oh, no, I knew I was going to translate.
Oh, and your dad knew that too?
Yeah, my dad knew that too. He knew that he was responsible for the plates while they were in his home, and they stayed in his home. I never took them back to my home. They stayed with my dad. My dad looked after them. He was like the keeper of the records, if you like. He put them somewhere safe, and so nobody knew where they were. And we went to their house on Sundays. We had a newly formed organizational meetings, and then after the meetings were finished, we translated for probably about an hour and a half, I want to say, each time.
And so you would read and your dad would serve as scribe? Is that?
So, yeah, we used the dining room, normal dining room table. I sat at the head with the plates that were going to be translated, which were the 24. My friend was on the right of me and my father was on the left. And as I translated, they wrote.
So there was no curtain between you like Joseph Smith?
No.
Okay.
They were on full view.
Did you take pictures of them or anything?
No, I've never understood why you'd want to do that with a sacred object. I mean, I wasn't going to be taking it. This was in 2006. So, I mean, social media wasn't where it was today. And I wouldn't have done it anyway. I just think I've seen other organizations take pictures of supposed artifacts and put them on the internet. I'm like, no, I don't even need to do that. People are either going to believe what I say or they're not. I don't need to prove it. So, yeah, I mean, that was it. We translated.
The two thoughts that come into my mind were, number one, James Strang. Are you familiar with James Strang?
Yeah, I know all about James Strang, yeah.
Because he allowed non-Mormons to see them. So nobody saw them but you, your dad, and your friend?
Well, no. People asked to see them, and I would pray about it on a person-by-person basis. And depending on what my answer was from God, would be whether I showed them to those people or not. My mom asked to see them, obviously, because she wasn't in the room and she never saw us unpack the box and she wanted to see them. So I prayed about that. I was told she could see the one set, which is the 24 plates, but she can't see the 10 plates. And I didn't argue the reason behind that. I just said, okay. I wasn't allowed to show her the translators, the interpreters. I was just allowed to show her the 24 plates. No,
Was it your wife there at the time too?
yeah, she was, yeah.
So did she see everything?
No, she didn't ask to. She didn't ask to see them. She wasn't in. I don't think she was interested in seeing them. So she never asked. So I never pushed the button. I never said, "Do you want to see them? Do you want to see it?" And it was her choice. She didn't want to see them.
But she knew you were going to translate something from your previous visions?
Yes. She was fully aware of what was going on, and has been since 2006. So.
And did she leave when you left too, the church, the LDS Church?
She left a little later than me. I think she probably left in she left in 2007 sometime.
Oh.
Her reasoning was, and you know, as I say, different people's stories need telling by those people. But, you know, we had a young son. He was 2 at the time, 2.5. And she was happy with him being in the nursery program. She had friends at the ward. And I don't think she was ready to let go of that yet. So that was fine. I mean, I was happy, but I wasn't going to bully her into doing anything she didn't want to do. It's not the person I am. So, and when she was ready, she left when she was ready to leave. And she's been worshipping with us probably since 2007. So.
Okay.
The church, you know, my argument at the time was, this is what I'm doing. I'm not making any decisions for you. You make those decisions on your own. To my friend, I was simply said, this is what's happening to me. You make decisions on your own. And with my parents, and they all made their own decisions and left when they decided to leave. And the same with my wife. And that was it, really. And then we translated, as I said, we translated the plates in like 10 Sundays. So, like, by the December, we'd finished. And then I'd already lined up some kind of print deal so I could get these out quickly. And then we had them all printed into book form by the end of the year, by the end of December. So we were ready to roll in the 2007 to give them out to people and start talking about them publicly to people. Because during the translation process, I wasn't discussing anything publicly with anybody.
This is the Book of Jaranek, is that right?
Yeah. So the Book of Jaranek was primarily based on the 24 plates. There's a section in the Book of Jaranek called the Religious Practices of the People of Light. That's what was on the 10 plates. So there was like a history, a basic history and a dealing with God there. Then the nuances of their religion and their ceremonies and their prayers were based on the 10 plates. So they were all translated. I translated 24, then I translated the 10, and we had them printed up by the December. So by 2007, it was all done. That's when we publicly came out and said, this is what we've got. This is the book. Come and read it. So that's that.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Elder Matthew Gill. In our next conversation, we're going to talk about religious practices of people who predate Judaism. Were they Christians?
Well, we do. We have a record of a people in that locality talking about building a temple in that place at that time, and building buildings, feasting and living their lives, and the whole Stonehenge area is littered with light.
Thanks for listening to Gospel Tangents. If you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, please subscribe at patreon.com/gospeltangents. You can hear the entire interviews there. Also, check out our new, improved, user-friendly website at gospeltangents.com. We've made it much more user-friendly, so check that out. Click here to subscribe, here for a transcript, and over here we've got more of our great videos. Thanks again.